Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Group Editors Live. Now, I have to be very honest with you. I'm very excited about the episode that we're about to have in the interview. Karl Dinkelmann is a man that has traversed the world of technology, business, and finance, and he has been extremely successful at each of them. Now, earlier this year, he co authored a book called Drive Rapid Results from Data, and we're going to talk to him about what inspired the book, where the journey began, what are the next steps, and very important to note, within a few hours of launching this book, which is quite interesting, Carl, they actually achieved Amazon bestseller status. So we're excited. We're going to dive into it. We're going to find out, what are the deeper elements to this. Carl, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Yudi.
So, something that we often do is before diving into the actual book and the reason for the interview, I want to take you back,
Mm,
right? So I want to go 2 decades back when
mm,
you started your journey in finance. What's going through your mind? What's inspiring you?
mm. So my background is actually I'm a chartered accountant.
Yeah.
I qualified in 2008, and but right from the beginning, even before I decided to study finance, I had a deep passion for technology.
Yeah.
And what happened was when I qualified, I went straight into the world of technology in software development,
Okay.
which was quite a unique space to be in. Be a CA with some
Mhm.
technology skills. But what I found is that I continuously got pulled into data analytics projects by
Mm.
CFOs that enjoyed the idea that I could talk the language of
As
finance
well.
and,
True.
and, and
Mm.
data and technology. And so I developed this deep empathy for CFOs, right? Having the finance background and working with them so regularly. Um, I spent, the bulk of my career in data analytics.
Mm.
I'm a data engineer. I code. I
Mm.
wrote software, all of that sort of thing. But throughout the journey, always interested in business, always interested in driving value and
Yeah.
things like that. And so, in the year 2000, after building a successful data analytics consulting division for a listed company, so we started Nexus Data,
Yeah.
and that really kicked off the dream our objective actually when we started up was to help companies to make better decisions
Mm.
using data they can trust or
Yeah.
insights they can trust. But throughout this process of writing the book and figuring out what are the challenges in the world of data analytics and how
Mhm.
organizations can really succeed more, our objectives changed,
Yeah.
and we became and we're much more focused now on how do we help our clients to grow their
Mhm.
businesses using data insights.
And that's a beautiful point for us to actually speak on, right?
Mm,
Because I know that you're someone who is very passionate about not just getting caught up in being aware or having the information and insights,
mm,
and you call it insight mode, right? So just
mm,
being caught up in, okay, we know what to do. It's like, how do we turn that
mm,
into actionable impact? So
mm,
speak to us about that. Like you're very big on impact more than
mm.
just awareness of the information.
Yeah. So this goes back to a fundamental challenge that we have in the world of data analytics and
Yeah.
AI. Gartner actually put out a report in 2019
Mm.
that made a prediction to 2022. Unfortunately, it's fairly old, but it's really the last time that somebody really did an
Yeah.
exercise like this. And that report says that they predicted that by 2022, only 20% of data analytics and AI initiatives globally
Mm.
would yield any value,
Wow.
right?
Mm.
So, and we see this with our customers continuously
Mm.
when we engage and on a consulting level. We work with organizations on their data analytics, normally to correct failures,
Yeah.
right? And this is what we see. In fact, we think it's way below 20%. We don't have statistical proof for
Mm.
that. But other reports lean towards 13% that actually generate
Wow.
value, right? So think about it like this: we're sitting in a space where more than 80% of the
Mm.
initiatives that get kicked off today
Yeah.
will yield zero results, right?
Mm.
Now, that's scary because if you're a CFO in a company today and you're embarking on a data analytics journey, that's a really scary
That's
place to
very
be,
scary. True.
right?
Yeah.
And this connects back to that empathy
Mm-hmm.
that I developed for CFOs because I feel that pain,
Mm-hmm.
right? Nobody wants to embark on a journey where I'm responsible for the financial success or to show a return on these investments that we're making, and I've got shareholders to answer to, and I want to make some bonuses myself
Yeah,
as well,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
It's just such a scary place to be,
Mm.
and so the data and AI market in general struggles with what we call a lack of data confidence, which is where
Yes.
business leaders just lack the confidence to invest, but they're getting pushed by the market, by hype
Mm.
and by FOMO,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Fear of missing out,
Yes.
to invest in this space. And it results in this pressure cooker of irresponsible investments,
Investments. Yeah.
right? Where we're investing, but we don't really know why,
Why? Or what are we going to
right?
do with it?
All
Exactly.
the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
right? And getting driven by salespeople that are selling snake oil, right?
Mm.
This tool will solve your problems. No, it won't. Generative AI won't solve all your problems. It's just another tool that's
Just
come
another
along
tool.
that can do
Yeah.
something new, right? You still have to hit the nail with the hammer in order to drive the nail in,
Mm.
right? The hammer is the tool, the AI is the tool, the big data is a tool, platforms are a tool, right? We need to know how to apply those tools in the right way with the right objectives to be able to get some sort of result.
Yeah.
And so organizations struggle with that challenge that we're embarking on this journey with the wrong objective in the
Objective.
first place,
Yeah. So it
right?
becomes wasteful at the end of the day.
That's
Exactly.
it.
That's the challenge. And so I want us to then come to the book
Mm.
because I think that's then very important and something you often speak about. And, I've been listening to you now and, I've done some research is not just being aware of how important data is, but individual businesses deciding what is it that we want to use this data to do in our business. Do we want to grow revenue? Do we want to cut costs? And so let's speak about the book, background of it, overview, what motivated you to say, okay, I'm going to put this on paper and I'm going to release it to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we often came across this challenge that organizations wanted to be data driven,
Mm.
right?
It's a big term now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a big term. I mean, we see it all over, and that's what a lot of consulting organizations are pushing.
Yeah.
The other big term today is actionable insights,
Mm.
right?
True.
And we actually did an analysis of our 25 competitors
Mm.
internationally, and we found that every single one of them have that view or that sort of angle in their strapline,
Yeah.
right? The challenge is that, firstly, if you look at being data driven as an objective,
Mm.
and when CEOs come with that that strategy, what starts happening is that organizations start measuring everything that moves, right?
Mm.
And this you can see this when organizations embark on huge IoT projects. They put sensors all over their equipment
Yeah.
and in
It's just
mines and all
measuring
that.
everything.
So great.
Yeah.
Now we're collecting a lot of data, but the problem with data collection or doing data collection at that speed is it's like collecting garbage, right?
Mm.
You better know what you're going to do with it before you start collecting it,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
And so organizations end up with this idea of being data driven. We want to measure everything that moves, but we don't understand why we're doing that. What value are we going to actually get out of that, right? So we're investing a lot of money and we're not seeing any returns. The other side is actionable insights, right? So you get data driven and you get actionable insights. And what actionable insights, the challenge with that is if that's your objective as a business leader, I want to make decisions using data, using actionable insights, it leads you to that point, right? So what we always use is the example of a customer churn project, right? Now, if for anybody that doesn't understand customer churn, what that really looks at is if you a mobile company, a telco, right, and you have 100,000 customers, then ideally what you want to be doing is you want to know before customers cancel their contracts with you, which are the customers that are most likely to cancel their contract. Now, if you're new to the world of data analytics, maybe that sounds very scary for you, right? But the fact is, you can do that. You've got enough data available in a telco to be able to see based on payment behavior.
Yep.
The obvious one is based on customer satisfaction scores, right? Or somebody called the call center, they had a bad
And had a bad
experience. They're
exactly.
quite likely to cancel.
Exactly.
It's not
Yeah.
that difficult to predict,
Yeah.
right? You don't actually even need analytics often. You just need to be
It's
able
right
to tie the
there.
right data
Yeah.
points, right? So we talk about customer churn as one of the great ways that organizations can create value if you're in a subscription based business. But the challenge is if you set your objective to be focused on delivering actionable insights, what that looks like in practice is you have a data science function that will kick off a proof of value project, right? Because they're not going to get the 10 million bucks they need in order to invest here. So they have to start with something small.
Exactly.
And they spend a month or two coming up with some insights, and they're often able to generate that really powerful data set that says these are the 1,000 customers that are most likely to churn in the next 30 days, right? Or to cancel their contracts. That's power for the business, right? Because now I can do something with that.
You can take an action on it.
The problem is you have these data functions and data scientists that generate those powerful insights, and they've now got these data sets. But when they take them to the business and they take them to IT to now integrate these insights into the CRM systems that must drive the retention campaigns, they get resistance. And business leaders and IT leaders go, where did this come from? Well, they say, well, we don't have this as a priority, right? We didn't see this. Now you want us to dedicate some of our very scarce resources to doing this integration where we don't understand what this even is, and data teams experience resistance. It's one of the primary reasons why
It's real.
why initiatives fail. Is because there's a lack of
Almost get
cohesion.
stuck, yeah.
You get stuck at that point, and we've seen this so many times with ourselves in the past and with other data functions we worked with. And so what ends up happening is those things die. And the problem, if you rewind, what is the actual issue? The issue is that we aimed for insights instead of aiming for value, right? And so my endpoint for anything that I'm doing with data analytics and AI should not be to get insights. My endpoint should be to drive value. So what that looks like as the alternative to that insights data set that shows us which customers are going to churn, the objective for that proof of value should be set from the beginning, to actually retain customers, right? I need to phone through those 1,000 customers, and I need to actually retain them so that I can see what the new revenue is that we generated out of that initiative, right? Because the challenge is if I take that list of customers that I haven't been able to phone through because I got resistance from the call center and from IT, right? If I take that to the CFO and I say, this is what we were able to produce with the investment we made in this proof of value, the CFO looks at it and goes, come on, that's not valuable, right? There's no revenue, there's no cost saving here.
There's nothing,
right? But if, on the contrary, we take a revenue result, new revenue we generated through this data set, because the call center actually phoned through these customers and we actually measured that value. When you take that to the CFO, he goes, why haven't we started with more? How can we expand this? Let's get some more investment into this. Because your objective is correct.
Wow. Man.
And that led to us writing the book. Because we saw these challenges in our own experiences and we started developing methodologies and frameworks to fix them, right? And so when we started seeing success, we decided, how do we repeat that success?
Constantly,
right?
Exactly.
And so we developed frameworks to repeat the success. And then we realized that the whole world struggles with this, right? There's a segment of companies that we call the 1%ers.
Yep.
They're and amongst them is the $1 trillion market cap club, right?
Yep.
The big boys. But these 1%ers are the companies that actually succeed with data analytics, and they're holding on to these secrets. They know this. They know they need to aim for value.
It's a value
That's
conversation,
it, right?
Yeah.
And so we wrote the book for the 99% that aren't succeeding. And that's who we work with, right? And so when you read the book, you'll see I can actually succeed if I just change these few things.
And perspective.
That's it.
Something interesting that you said, and to quote, is you have to embrace the idea that taking steps will be imperfect. Things might look different from what you expect, but the key is to continue moving.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that, like internally now. So say someone is in a company and they're working on a project. How do they need to start thinking about, how do I communicate value to not just my subordinates, but my managers? How do I ensure that I'm changing my language to accomplish my objectives?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Yudi. The challenge we sit with, especially in large corporates, is that we're sitting with business leaders that are essentially custodians of shareholder value.
Yep.
Instead of like I sit in my business, I'm a startup investor, right? And I'm often investing my own capital at a very high risk to see high rewards. Whereas custodians of shareholder value in large organizations are generally looking for 6% or 10%.
Yeah.
And, if we're doing 15 to 20%, we're shooting the lights out, right?
Yeah.
Where startups are trying to double revenue year on year, right? And often what happens in data analytics is you have these very conservative business leaders coming into the picture, and driving this conservative view into the world of data analytics and AI, where you need to be willing to take some risk because it's not all laid out in front of you, right? There's some R&D involved, research and development. There's risk involved because you're not always sure of the result you're going to get. But what you can do is you can apply frameworks into something that's seemingly unstructured and challenging, right?
Yes.
And that will increase your chances of success. So, for example, you can invest in phases, right? But with the right objectives for each phase of the investment, the objective to see value instead of just insights, which motivates for the next
thing. So
set
it's
of
almost like
investment.
milestone based
That's
financial.
it. So organization leaders often talk about fail fast and forward, right? And I'm sure we've heard this, right? You don't need to fail fast and forward, right? If you've got the right frameworks and the right objectives, of course, there's going to be points where you fail, right? But it's the ability to see what's going on and to pivot very quickly into alternative options, which organizations struggle with today because they don't have the right objective. They're not actually measuring what they're doing. They don't have value at the front of your mindset. So when you're only focused on insights, it's really hard to see when you're successful.
Yeah.
But when you're focused on value, it's much easier because I can see, is there revenue coming from
Have
this?
I?
Or isn't
Exactly.
there?
It's measurable.
That's measurable.
It's measurable.
That's it.
Now let's bring it home. Local George region, we often see a lot of business activity, but sometimes, it's a year or 2 year sprint and that business goes into the red. So we're seeing this challenge of not, making decisions based on actual data. And so how do we turn that around? Right? What would you say to the local entrepreneur who is trying to make better decisions in their business? They're trying to either cut costs or double revenue, but how do they need to start thinking about the decisions they make?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll talk about the local environment, but this goes for everybody, right? So everybody that's embarking on an entrepreneurial journey, or even if you're sitting in a big corporate and you want to drive some value with data analytics, this applies equally to you. I think the most important thing, firstly, is data analytics actually started out of the world of finance, right? So you actually had CFOs that would appoint a finance analyst, right? And often the question, or mostly the question was, let's explain this cost, or let's try and reduce this cost, right? So data analytics, especially when it's sitting under a CFO, is often cost focused.
Cost focused,
right? The problem is you cannot save your way to greatness, right? And so what we have to do is first get a mindset that looks at revenue growth rather than cost savings as a primary objective. Now, that's not universal because certain industries are capital intensive. They have huge costs. Their revenue is very much driven by a commodity price, like in mining, or they're in a position where, in manufacturing, they have customers that will buy everything they produce, right? So now it's the only thing they can really tweak to drive profits is costs, right? True. And so, yes, there are big initiatives. We've had some success in mining around, over time management and things like that, where you brought insights and you could apply that quickly to the business, and we save, $5 million a year for one mine, for example. Wow. But for somebody sitting in a business, or you driving a business, there's four main things that you need to think about, right? And the first one is make sure that you're focusing on the right initiatives, right? So that talks to the challenge that when organizations are embarking on a data analytics journey, they believe that insights is the answer, right? And so we start developing dashboards and things like this that can help us to see what's going on to make better decisions, right? The challenge is that's not the value mindset that you need to have, right? And so what we say is that dashboards and insights produce indeterminate value, which is essentially value that is hard to measure, right? So if someone's looking at a dashboard and it tells me something about the business and I can make a decision, I'm not measuring the value of that decision, right? So that's hard to measure.
That's hard, yeah.
I'm going to struggle to motivate for further investment in something like that because at some point, my CFO is going to look at the spreadsheet and say, I spent this on that.
Come on.
Can't continue spending where I'm not sure what the value is. So I have to shift towards what we call determinate value, which is value that is easy to measure. So that would be the example that I gave earlier about the customer churn analytics, where I can do something with insights, I can apply it in the business, and then I can actually see the revenue that's coming. I can measure it easily, right? So I'm able to tie the returns that we get back to the investments that we made, and it makes CFOs very happy, and then they're willing to invest more.
And it just keeps
Right?
on going.
That's it. The second thing is, so we said that you must focus on the right initiatives. That's the first one. The second one is you need to make sure that you know how to unlock large investments in data analytics and AI, right? And this goes to that back to that phased approach that we spoke about, where if I'm embarking on a POC, then I know that I must set the objective correctly to drive value instead of just getting insights, right? And that's very different because all of a sudden I'm not just working with the data analytics function that needs to produce an insight, but I actually have to engage the business, the retentions call center, right, to bring them close to this and tell them this is coming.
Also in on it.
You're going to have to change your scripts. You're going to probably have to change your process. You're going to have to train some people, etc. It's a very different ball game. And then I have to work with the IT function as well that has to integrate this data set into a system or a platform that the call center uses to be able to drive that retentions campaign. Because I need a call center of say 500 people coming in the next morning, and this data needs to be available for them to start phoning through these customers.
It needs to be collaborative, so it
needs
has
to be
to be
collaborative.
all together.
That's why we say that when you want to succeed with data analytics, you need world-class project management, right? Because it's across multiple functions. I have to get alignment, and people need to be held accountable for their piece of the puzzle, right? So that's the second thing. It's shifting your focus to the right initiatives, and then making sure I understand how to get big investments, right? But doing that in a phased way, right? The third one is I need to be able to drive accountability in my leadership, right? Because what happens is because we set the objective of insights instead of value, leaders become apathetic, and when they're called into account for what insights, they throw up their hands and say, "But we didn't make a commitment here," right? And so you have to drive accountability. How do you drive accountability with leaders? You set an objective, so you have to forecast the value that you expect to get, and then you have to actively measure the value that you produce. And then you have to bring those two together and say to the leaders, you forecasted this, we contracted you into this, right? We set KPIs and OKRs for this value that you meant to produce. And then while we're delivering, this is not matching.
So what's going on? Exactly.
What's going on? You guys, you have to correct this, right? So that immediately makes a big change for any organization. And then the fourth thing, and this is really critical because especially in larger organizations, you have multiple different things going on all at the same time, right? And in larger organizations, a big bank, for example, can have 1,000 initiatives ongoing at the same time, right? And so the fourth thing is you have to be able to rectify poorly performing initiatives quickly, right? So that means I have to have the data that tells me how this thing is performing versus what we thought it would do, right? And then I have to either fix it quickly, get involved, because data scientists that's not how they think, right? They're not too concerned about the value as much as what they're concerned about the insights because they've measured on the confidence levels of their models how accurate are the insights that we're providing. They're not so worried about how is this landing the business? Is the business actually adopting what we're producing, right? And so you get this wilderness with data in projects where they're not producing value and they just sit there and nobody knows. And a year later,
you realize,
oh goodness, what's happened here? But you've had a team on this for months, right? You have to be able to rectify those initiatives by having that information at your fingertips. And that either looks like fixing something in an initiative quickly or pivot away from that initiative, focus on something else. Because you've got such limited and expensive resources, you need to make sure they're invested in the right place.
At the right time also.
At the right time, that's it.
And so to wrap it up, I think that's really important, that point that you just said. If someone is new in the journey, right, new entrepreneur, I have an idea, I'm an SME, and I want to make the right decisions, I have limited capital. How can I, on a very small scale, start thinking that way, right? And make decisions that are not just driven by data, but that I'm focusing on the right data. So not just, hey, if it's a YouTube channel, how many views did I get? But no, like if I want to do advertising, how do I think about that metric the right way? How can someone at that level of their journey apply some of those lessons?
This is business 101, Yudi, right? And what data analytics came along and did and what AI came along and did is it confused business 101. And what we say is that data leaders and AI leaders often forget what the primary purpose of doing business is, right? the primary purpose is to
Yeah.
create value,
Straight up.
right? And we forget that.
Yeah.
So this is really, you start there and you say, how do I want to create value firstly, right? And then I work backwards from that point into the data that's going to support that value, right? And generally for any organization, that's only about 5% of your data that can drive real value, right? Everything else I forget. It's noise.
It's
Right.
noise. Yeah.
That's it. Insights that you're bringing to somebody that are supposed to give something. If it's not going to create value, it's just noise, right? It's just more confusion. You're telling me this why, right?
What am I supposed to do with this?
What am I supposed to do
Yeah.
with this? That's it. I just feel more under pressure and confused. So that's really the starting point is understanding what do you want to do. So that's called business strategy,
Yeah.
right? And then from there, I work back towards the data points that I need in order to drive this, right? And you know that there's many different ways to do that. You know, we see it all around the world with platform companies like Uber and Airbnb that don't own an asset, but they're just an exchange, right? And we're seeing this more and more, even with some of the big South African companies that we're working with that are realizing that they're sitting on some really valuable data and they can start monetizing their data. In other words, they sell some of their data outwards, anonymized, to be able to create value for somebody else, right? That's using data as an asset, driving some revenue from that. So it's I think that's the answer is start with value and then work backwards from there into what can we do from an insights point of view
Yeah.
to be able to drive this value.
That's amazing, man. Let's talk about lastly. I know it's already Amazon bestseller status, so people
Yeah.
are reading, but I really want to find out what are you hoping it does, right? So what are you hoping that someone that picks up this book and decides to go through all pages, what are you hoping that they get from this?
We fought long and hard with this issue, and you know our focus has always been on the data leaders as consulting and things like that. But with the book, we aimed it towards the business leader, the CFO, the CEO, and that's really what we're hoping for. Is that
Yeah.
CEOs and CFOs will latch onto the concepts in the book and really use them to embed new and fresh ideas around driving value with data, right? So that we move away from this idea that insights are king, right? Or that tools need to drive everything, right? Or that innovation is everything, right? This is the interesting thing is innovation is not always valuable and value doesn't always come from innovation, right? We get told by the market something else because somebody's trying to sell us something, right?
Yeah.
The book is meant to help business leaders to develop a strong foundation, right, for how to build value, right? And that is a timeless, these frameworks in the book are timeless. They're not driven by hype or new
Yeah.
technologies.
What's the big thing?
50 years time,
It'll still be
when
important.
you're looking at new tools that have come along, whatever they will be, right? You'll still be able to apply these principles in the same way.
That's powerful. Carl, thank you so much. This is amazing.
Thanks
Where
for
can
having
people
me.
get it? Online?
Yeah,
On
on Amazon. You can
Yeah.
also go to rapidvaluecycle.com. That's
Nice.
probably the easiest, right?
Okay.
Rapid with two P's, like
Yeah.
the title, rapidvaluecycle.com, and you'll get a lot more resources there. You can also contact us through that platform. And yeah, there's a link there to take you to the Amazon purchase page. It's also available locally on Takealot if you search for it there.
Okay.
And it will be available soon in hard copy format in some of the local bookshops as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. You guys have heard it. The process and the journey doesn't need to be a complex one. It often starts with the small thing and thinking about value is the main focus. I'm very happy to have you in studio, Carl. Excited to talk about this in future. And yeah, you guys go get the book. Work with the Group Editors Live. Catch you next time.